On this episode of the 90s, guys, we're going to talk about the top 9 things from the 90s that are
What are we going to do?
We're going to talk about the top 9 things from the 90s that are each important to us.
Jason,
Yeah,
didn't we sign up for video games?
I like games.
Well, we're going to talk about games and movies and music and events that happened in the 90s. Not just games. We're going to change it up this week a little bit.
Okay, all right, I can do that.
So this is something new. We're going to start a new series. This is going to be the first episode of this series. What we're going to do is we're going to take a break from playing games every now and then and kind of elaborate on some of the other things we talked about in our intro. So in this series, what we're planning on doing is talking about the top 9 things from the 90s that are important to each of us. So what we're going to do is we're going to go through our top 9, and then what this series will kind of evolve to is we'll talk about music, movies, games, events. We'll come up with lists, and then we'll rank them between us and come up with one solid list of top 9.
He's going first.
All right. So, my top 9 from the 90s. Number 9, In Living Color. In 1990. Had the Wayans brothers, Jim Carrey, David Alan Grier, J-Lo.
I didn't watch In Living Color.
It was like the funnier version of Saturday Night Live.
Didn't it come from Canada?
No, it was an American show.
Oh, we'll be upset when I have Kids in the Hall on my list.
Weren't they all pale Canadian people?
Yes.
Moving on. Number 8, Can't Touch This by MC Hammer. Can't touch this. What more can you say about big baggy parachute pants?
Parachute pants. They were
shiny too.
They were shiny. I enjoyed. Do you remember?
I know the song. It wasn't a song that I listened to in the 90s.
Well, it came out in 1990, and then
Okay.
Too Legit to Quit followed that up in 91,
And
that
which was
his,
not
second
as good.
big hit. Not as good.
Nowhere near.
It's one of those things. Is like, well, I'm like 13, late 2000s something. I was like, I've heard the song.
So he would have been 1 or 0.
I would have been 0.
Yeah.
When the song came out.
That's
All
pretty
right. Moving on. Next, we're going to talk about a movie from the 90s. Number 7, Jurassic Park. 1993.
That is a movie I have seen.
Yes. Everybody has seen Jurassic Park. Well,
Nah, not everybody.
Almost.
I can tell a fun story about this. It didn't make my list, spoiler alert, but I remember the scene where the park goes dark. A light had blown out in the apartment we lived in and freaked my mom out to no end. In that moment, it was good. It was one of the good memories from the 90s.
Yeah, and that set up the series, for the next 2. Plus the new one that just came out. I mean,
And the love of dinosaurs.
yeah, 20 years later, here we are still talking about a movie that,
Right.
was ahead of its curve for dinosaurs.
Way.
Number 6, Y2K prep. Back in 98, 99, everybody was prepping for the Y2K bug that was going to hit, where when the clocks turned to 2000 on January 1st, 2000, computers were going to crash, the world was going to stop,
They were.
banking systems were going to fail.
And missiles.
There was
talks
gonna
of
randomly
missiles
go
going
off.
off. Yeah.
Yes.
See, this was the first big news event that I remember being like, oh, I've seen that in the news. People are talking about it. Because nothing before that stuck.
Right.
I mean, I was 10 when 2000 hit.
They made a big deal about it, and realistically, when they happened, only 50% of the systems they thought that were going to be affected by it actually were.
And it was minuscule.
It was so little, nothing really happened. And basically, companies spent billions of dollars trying to future-proof their systems for no need. So it was the biggest IT racket of the 90s. Number 5, Napster. Came out in 99.
I remember Napster. You had to make sure that when you were done, you had to crash your computer so it didn't infect you.
Well, that was before people started doing the Trojans and all that.
Oh,
when it first came out, it was actually a great peer-to-peer source to actually get music and stuff like that.
Couldn't you originally play the music in the actual thing too?
You could play the music in the actual app.
I remember we had Apples growing up, and it was so QuickTime was
the music player that you had. Yeah.
Yep, was the best thing ever.
Yeah.
See, I didn't use Napster. I used LimeWire. That was my big, peer-to-peer when I got into it. And I'm sorry, Mom. I'm sure I destroyed your computer.
Number 4, the O.J. Simpson chase. The infamous white Bronco rolling down 30 miles an hour on the California expressways.
So I don't remember the chase. I mean, I remember hearing about it, The big thing that I remember was the trial.
And if the glove don't fit,
You must acquit. I didn't watch the trial, but I remember my friend's mom. It was like his mom and his grandma. They had to come home and watch the trial. Everyone did.
Yep. It was actually such an event that people would like order pizza and wings, and like they sat around waiting for like the verdict, and it was like people called off sick from work. I mean, it was a huge deal.
Huge
for him to be just not convicted of it at all.
Right, and
acquitted is the term.
And it was really the first celebrity case that ever really was around for the most part.
Number 3, the launch of the PS1 is a console of awesomeness that revolutionized going from cartridge to disc. In 94, the launch of the PS1.
This did not make my list.
This...
Wait till you see my list.
Touche. That's fine. We will.
Okay.
We'll get there.
So the PlayStation was cool.
I mean, it was the big revolution of technology. I mean, you went from cartridge-based systems, N64, Super NES, to, hey, look, we can put stuff on a disc and make it awesome.
And read it with lasers.
I remember none of my local friends, like in the neighborhood, had them. They had N64s and Super NESs. And I remember seeing all the cartridges. And then a friend of my friend went to his house on the other side of the complex, and he had a PlayStation. I just remember going, he's putting CDs in there and playing games. And I didn't know what was going on. I mean, I could have been maybe 5 or 6.
Yeah,
no. I was maybe 7. Something like that.
Looking back, I don't even know if I knew anyone that had a PlayStation.
See, I didn't buy one when it first came out because I couldn't afford it because it was too expensive.
It was.
I think I bought one probably in like 96 or 97 after I'd started working, and date myself a little bit.
I was 6 when you started working.
I was working at a fast food place for like cash underage. I bought one used at probably one of the local stores.
It would have been Funko Land.
Yes, thank you. I was trying to think of what that was. And I bought one used for like $125. And the first game I got for it was Resident Evil 2. Which is why I can't wait until we actually get to the point where we're going to play that game, because that's like the first game on the PlayStation 1 I ever played.
We're going to play Resident Evil 2. We already bought it.
Yes. So, that was my number 3.
All right, number 2.
Number 2, Ice Ice Baby by Vanilla Ice.
That's not what I was thinking. Good.
Was it Barbie Girl?
No, I was thinking Macarena.
Ooh, there's that one too.
That was a close tie, but it didn't make my list because that was annoying as shit to me.
That's why I was really worried.
I didn't want to include it because it was one of those, it just drove you nuts. And I even believe, was it the president or the vice president at the time?
Did it on
It did it on, no, it was Colin Powell. Colin Powell did it on TV.
Okay.
And that just kind of, I was done.
So.
No one hit one. And number 1, dial-up and the birth of the internet. In 90 and 91, the internet launched. It was actually late 90, early 91. And launched dial-up. And your main browser on an Apple computer, do you remember what it was in school?
It was Netscape Navigator. Okay, that's what.
Correct.
Yep. I remember specifically at booting up I remember when we got AOL 2.0, and we were just the bomb. Actually, growing up, my mom was a graphic designer, and we had to have we had to have the 2 lines on our house so we could be connected on the internet
and still be able to get phone calls.
And still be able to get phone calls. We were awesome.
After listening to your list of things, you're gonna listen. When it gets to my list, you're gonna see there's an age gap.
Yeah.
Things that matter to me in the 90s, completely different than yours.
This is gonna be sweet because mine's gonna be right in the middle.
You are a child.
I was able to kind of go from both ends of the spectrum, and there were a lot of things that I left off my list. Like some of the things that were close runners up to the list were like the Bulls winning their 3-peat championship in the 90s.
I'm not a big sports fan, but I remember the Bulls.
That was something that I was a part of because I was a big Jordan fan back then. There were a lot of movies and songs that came out that were really, really good in the mid-90s. But, for the list, to try and cut down to just 9 for this episode and pick the top 9 for me, those were my top 9. Now, when we get into another episode where we're picking a topic, we can kind of expound on that later.
And don't worry, I'm up next.
So, thanks for watching this episode. This has been Plank's Top 9 from the 90s. We're going to follow up with Jason's and then Chris's episode. Thanks for watching. Make sure you subscribe, comment, like below, follow us on social media.
We're the 90s guys.
Thanks for watching.
Bye bye.